Okay? I think so. Interesting times. It's funny that I reflect on it now and wondered how I ended up here in the first place. 2022 was the year, and I recall at the start of that year, the first 21 days or so in January, going to a time of fasting and prayer, but this time I ended up going away because I was seeking direction from the Lord as to what to do with my life. What am I going to do with the rest of my life? I understood that there was a strong call on my life, but how that plays out in practical terms wasn't yet clear to me. And in trying to figure out how that might work out, I went on a holiday, and as part of that holiday I was saying to the Lord, what do you want me to do when I get back to the UK? The holiday was in Barbados. In fact, the original plan was not to go to Barbados, it was to go to South Africa. I wanted to go on safari, to see the childhood things of the tigers and the lions and the giraffes. I was thinking, your necks can't be that long, surely. But that was the plan initially, and then there was this news report that talked about the fact that there was a new strain of corona discovered in South Africa, and as a result, flights to and from South Africa were just effectively blocked. So plans to go away to South Africa really just fell through. And then the question is, where was I going to go? Cast lots, fell on Barbados, and so I ended up going to Barbados, which is quite interesting, especially when you're a Jamaican by heritage, because us Jamaicans here in the UK, holiday to us means going back to Jamaica, and we like to go back to what we know because we love our land. But I ended up going to Barbados instead, and in being in Barbados, it was just an incredible time of prayer and seeking the Lord and asking him, what would he like me to do? Where would he have me to go? And I came back to the UK, and the most bizarre thing happened. I got a phone call which said, we'd like you to go and pastor the Reading Church. And I said no. And that was, it's interesting. I didn't see that coming anyway, but I didn't feel a call. I didn't feel a sense of this was for me. And so I said no. And it was Bishop Bolt at the time, and he said to me, pray on it, think about it. And I said, yes, okay, I will go away and think about it. And I did go away and have a think about it, but I didn't pray on it because I was already convinced in my mind what the answer would be. And he checked in at some point later and said, did you pray upon this? And I remembered that I promised to pray upon it. And so I fulfilled that promise. I said, okay, let me go and pray about it. In praying about it, the Lord said, Reading is your next step. And I was annoyed because I thought it was the devil. Let me rephrase that. I knew it was God. I wanted it to be the devil. And so I started, rebuking. We cut and clear that. We cast that to the other side because certainly not. I've got a good career. Let me focus on that. I enjoy my work. I enjoy my job. Let me build upon that. And certainly the conviction or the heart towards Reading would not disappear at all. And here I am. Nearly a year later, I'm in Reading. And how did I say yes to Reading? Because a passion, overwhelming enthusiasm came into my heart for Reading. And I didn't know exactly where I was going to. It was not a location or a church that I was familiar with. And I came here, and one thing I noticed from the very get-go is that the majority of the Reading brethren are actually from Barbadian heritage. And I thought, that can't be coincidental. I was supposed to go to South Africa. Corona stopped me, ended up in Barbados. There I was asking the Lord, what next? And I came back to the UK and said, I'm going to reunite you with some Bayesian folks. You couldn't make these things up. God, I'm learning, has an incredible sense of humor. It's just incredible just to think about how he orchestrated and set this all up. One of the things that was amazing to me, Sunday the 3rd of July, I showed up to NTCG Reading for service. I was greeted at the door by who I later learned to be Sister Davis, Mother Davis. She didn't know who I was because I didn't show up dressing like what you'd expect a pastor to look like. I was very casual. I was wearing olive green jeans. Imagine that. I turned up in green jeans on my first day as pastor. I had my Jordan ones on. The colorway was just colorwaying, okay? And I think I had a sort of cream, or suppose you can call it marl or ecru or stone, whatever you want to call it, a stonewash overshirt. Some people call them shacket. They're not shackets, they are overshirts. And I had all of that on, and I was greeted by Mother Davis, and I don't think she knew who I was. She thought I was, oh, nice young man, you've come to service. It's good for us to have a visitor today. And she put me to sit somewhere towards the back, maybe midsection, which I loved, and sat there, and I was just made some observation. My earliest recollection after being greeted and placed to be seated by Mother Davis was the flickering light above the stage. There was a flickering light. The light bulb wasn't working, and sometimes flickering lights can be a nuisance. You don't want to see them, so you probably just want to switch it off and forget about it as long as you don't see it. But the Lord impressed upon me in that moment that this must not be seen as a nuisance. This must be seen as a spark. The flicker is a spark of life that can just come back in all its vibrancy and enthusiasm. And that first service, I remember, it was a small gathering, a small handful of brethren, and I had to preach truth. And by the end of the service, everybody was at the altar. That was just a significant thing. I asked for the pool to be open, the baptismal pool, because the Lord had given me a vision to rededicate the pool to Him, because the water will be ready and stirred for future baptism. And since I've been here, we've done 2 baptismal services already. And so God has been incredibly good in terms of fulfilling His word. And the altar was just filled that Sunday. And by the end of service, I felt that there was much work to do and much to challenge, and brethren would come around and they would greet, and they're like, oh, it's nice to have you, Pastor, great for you to be here, etc. In fact, some of them didn't want to call me Pastor. Imagine that. You're young is often a response or a comment that I hear. You're young. When they said young pastor, we thought somebody in their 50s. You could be my son. You could be my grandson. But I didn't come into this with any arrogance. I knew that there had to be a sense of humility, and at the moment I was just a pastor, or at that moment I was just a pastor that was sent to them. I was not yet their pastor. And one thing I've learned is that you can be a pastor, but not their pastor. The process to become their pastor was an interesting journey. It still is an interesting journey. And in following the lead of the Lord, there was eventually a gravitational pull of my heart towards their hearts and their hearts towards my heart. And that's just covenant. And out of that, God says, we are a people of covenant. The hearts and the minds are fusing. We shall become one. We'll be in agreement with each other, and we'll also be in agreement with Almighty God. And that's what covenant means. And we journeyed through the book of Joshua, which was about Joshua and the children of Israel inheriting the promised land. And I believe God gave us that journey in particular because Reading is our promised land, and Reading is our inheritance. And it shows in that story of Joshua and the journey across the Red Sea into the place of promise and defeating and removing the giants from the land. It shows what it means for people to go into covenant with Yahweh, who is the covenant-keeping God. And we have been coming together in covenant and shifting the culture from the flickering light to a constant light whose intensity brightens more and more and more and more. And there are lights forming, illumination developing all over covenant. I thought about it in the lead up to this 1-year pastoral anniversary, and I'm absolutely convinced that this has by far been the greatest thing I've ever done with my life. I cannot exaggerate it. I cannot state it anymore. It is fulfilling. it is rewarding, it is beautiful. I have a love for the people of covenant that has just grown stronger and stronger. I am determined to fight for them. I am determined to pray for them. I will cry with them when they cry and laugh with them when they laugh. I will show them from the word of the Lord how God has good things in store for them. I will help them to fight against the things that they're fighting against. And if I can't do it of myself, I will find people who can help them to get through the crises of life, because they are my people that the Lord has blessed me with, and I take the shepherding of the people of covenant incredibly serious. I'm humbled by those who say, Pastor, how do you do it? It's not easy to be a bivocational minister, but you've called in and you've checked in and you've sent text messages and you prayed for me just to remind me that you've got my back as well. And I see this synergy taking place, this collaboration. As I have your back, so do you have my back. And it's just been humbling. I am honored to have made it to 1 year with you. I really am honored. It's been the best year of my life. And I hope that you will have me for another year as your pastor. And I'm new at this, but with you, I found my way. And the fact that God would have given me such an amazing group of people to pastor, He has used you to shape me. You being you makes me want to be a better pastor for you. You praying for me makes me want to pray for you even more. You encouraging me makes me want to preach better messages to you. I do not desire to come in here at any point with a substandard message, a substandard approach. You are encouraging me to get better, to be more sharp. You are encouraging me to go to the next level. It is because of you why I am, and I'm grateful for that. Covenant, it's been an honor.